the law is rarely what you think. So let's open the case. A police officer stops you in the street. You weren't doing anything. They say, "What's your name?" Do you actually have to tell them? Get this wrong, and you could either give away rights you didn't need to, or commit an offence you didn't know existed. And this is one of those questions where people are confidently wrong in both directions. Some think you must always identify yourself to police. Others think you never have to. The truth sits in between, and it hinges entirely on one thing: what power the officer is actually using. Let's start with the general rule, because it surprises people. If a police officer simply stops you in a public place and asks your name, you are generally not required to give it. You don't even have to answer their questions at all. What's happening there has a name: a stop and account. The officer asks you to account for yourself, what you're doing, where you're going. But here's the key: a stop and account is not a legal power. They cannot detain you for it, and you are not obliged to say a single word. And here's a myth even more people get wrong. Even if you are being formally stopped and searched, you still do not have to give your name and address. Officers very often ask. You're entitled to decline. The search can happen without your name. The two things are separate. So far so simple. But and this matters enormously, there are specific situations where the law does require you to identify yourself. Get caught out by one of these, and refusing becomes a criminal offence. There are three big ones. The first is Section 50 of the Police Reform Act 2002. If an officer reasonably believes you have been behaving in an antisocial manner, behavior likely to cause harassment, alarm or distress, they can require your name and address. Refuse, and that's an offence, with a fine of up to £1,000. But Section 50 has real limits. They need a genuine, reasonable belief about your actual conduct, not a hunch, not what someone else did, not what they think you might do later. And it only covers your name and address, not your date of birth. They are not entitled to that under this power. The second exception. If you are driving, the rules change completely. Under the Road Traffic Act 1988, a driver must give their name, address, and license details when required by police. Behind the wheel, you have far less choice. Refusing here is a criminal offence in its own right. And the third. If you are placed under arrest, you must identify yourself. At that point the informal rules are gone. So, antisocial behaviour, driving, or arrest. Outside those gateways, a simple street stop generally doesn't compel you to give anything. Now the single most important warning in this whole video. Where you are required to give details, or even where you choose to, never give a false name or address. Giving false details is itself a criminal offence, and it is very often treated far more seriously than simply, lawfully, declining to answer. Silence is not a crime. Lying can be. So how do you handle it in the moment? There's one calm, powerful question: am I being detained, and under what power? That single sentence forces the officer to identify the legal basis they're acting on. It tells you instantly whether you're free to leave, and whether you actually have to answer. So, do you have to give the police your name? Usually, in a casual street stop, no. Not even in a stop and search. But yes, if they're using Section 50 for antisocial behaviour, yes if you're driving, and yes if you're arrested. And in every case, never, ever give a false name. 3 things to remember. First, stay calm and ask the question: am I being detained, and under what power are you acting? Note the answer. It changes everything about what you're required to do. Second, remember the 3 situations where you genuinely must identify yourself: antisocial behavior under Section 50, driving, and arrest. Outside those, a polite "am I free to go" is usually all you need. And third, if in doubt, stay silent rather than invent a name. Declining where you're entitled to is lawful. A false name is a crime. And if you believe police have overstepped, note the details and speak to a solicitor. That's the law as it stands. This has been general legal information, not advice. For your own situation, speak to a qualified solicitor. I'll see you in the next case. Court adjourned.